gentlemen, I'm Shadow, the Otherworld Gamer. The Sega CD, a failed system, as it was an attachment to the Genesis or Mega Drive, depending on where you were. But unfortunately, it never really took off. In spite of that, it was a precursor to modern gaming technology in that it used disc format. Being that it was still in its infancy, it's not hard to see why it wasn't a big success. However, if there is one Sega CD game that has been universally praised as a damn good game, it is Sonic CD. Definitely back then, Sega had their priorities straight when it came to their ass-kicking, groundbreaking, speed barrier busting mascot, that is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now that being said, let's go and play what could very well be the best Sega CD game ever made, Sonic CD! Let's get ready to rock this game.
Now this game would set a trend with time travel, which will ultimately be used in later Sonic games. Unlike the Genesis games, however, this has an actual opening scene, which is Sonic discovering what Robotnik has done to the Little Planet. Now I'm playing the Xbox 360 version, but for the opening I prefer the original, as it has the catchy Sonic Boom song playing in the background.
So let's enjoy the rest of this opening clip so we can get an idea of what this game is about.
Now our opening stage is the standard forest stage, very similar to Green Hill except a tad bit brighter. Not too bad honestly, it's good for letting us get used to the controls. Now before I get too far ahead, we're not going to be collecting the Chaos Emeralds in this game but rather the time stones. However, it's not going to be the main priority. Now you'll also see these signposts that will either say past or future. Pass one of those and go fast enough, this will happen. Thank you for that, Doc. Now essentially, going to the past like we did here, you can find a metal cage and a metal Sonic hologram. Destroy them both to make a good future for the specific act. Now if you go into the future, well, it's terrible if you don't get the good future, but you'll see them in the boss fights.
The first of which will be coming up very, very soon.
Now as for the fights themselves, they aren't the standard 8 hits to win Robotnik boss fights. Usually in this game they take about 3 to 4 hits, but they are unique each battle. This one you have to wait until he's back on the right side of the screen and just keep hitting him. It's very easy to work with.
Now it is time for us to free the animals, or in this case, the plants, and end this zone for us and move on. When starting Collision Chaos, don't rush, or this will happen. Now with that out of the way, we are introduced to Sonic's #1 fangirl, Amy Rose, and of course the ultimate evil, Metal Sonic. I'm sorry, I just don't see Amy's role in this game. It wasn't needed. You know, she could have been introduced in Sonic Adventures like she was, and, you know, it would have been alright. But let's face it, she's always been useless. She suffers from a certain thing called the random guy on stage moment syndrome. And now what that is someone who has no role and interrupts the show for no reason. We don't need you, Amy, so get the fuck off the stage. I must say, this level is quite colorful. Now, it's generally an easy level, but you have to watch out for the occasional traps because they do happen, and there are various different enemies that are a little bit harder to deal with. Again, a good zone to get used to the controls. Not too fond of the music though. The boss, however, is a completely different story. You're basically playing pinball, trying to get to the top area of the level, while Robotnik is throwing bombs at you. Don't worry, they don't actually harm you, just block you. It's just very hard to deal with the physics. But when you reach the top, 3 hits and he's done. Ah, fuck! I really hate that fucking boss. I could see it being a decent boss later in the game, but seriously? Fuck you, Robotnik. In another Sonic Zone cliche, we get our usual water zone. Now thankfully, this is the only one we deal with in Sonic CD. But unlike most water levels, this one is actually a tad bit fun. But not quite as fun as Hydro City and Sonic 3 though. You'll be spending most of your time down in the water, so you best better make it a priority to get the big bubbles as each one passes by. Again, just usual stuff that you have to do in most water levels to get by. Not too hard to deal with. Well, it can be, I guess. Now for the boss entitled Tempest, it is actually a two-phase boss. First, you chase Robotnik around in a loop section of the zone. Hit him about 3-4 times, and then he opens up a passage, and then you face him surrounded by bubbles. Now I gotta say this, if you lose here due to lack of oxygen, you really should stop playing this game and beat your head in with a fucking hammer because, well...
It's official. You suck.
Moving on to Quartz Quadrant. Now this is considered a mine level. The main thing that you have to watch out for is the conveyor belts that litter this zone. Oh, and the badniks as well, because in this particular zone there is a lot more. One more thing you should watch out is the falling rocks, because they will hurt you. Not too much to it really in the end. One of the easier zones. A little surprising at this stage of the game. Now as for the boss, it is just a treadmill. You have to run in one place, which will cause friction to the bottom of Robotnik's machine, while at the same time dodging bombs. Not really easy considering that there is also a wall of spikes you have to watch out for, but eventually he'll leave and you'll have finally conquered the Quartz Quadrant. You know, I was seriously tempted to put my warning sign up, but because this is a pretty popular game, I'm just gonna assume most people know what I'm talking about. This level, Wacky Workbench, I fucking hate it. The floors make you bounce all over the place while you are also trying to get away from being fried on the electric rods that litter all over the place. I mean, come on, man. Why the fuck was this level of frustrating needed? Just to piss us all off? I'm gonna assume so. Fuck Wacky Workbench. This level just plain sucks. If I wanted to bounce around, I'd be playing Sonic Spinball now. Fuck this fucking level. It's fucking stupid, lame, annoying, and... I apologize for that. I know it was a bit childish, but I simply hate Wacky Workbench. Don't get me wrong. I love a good challenge. But I think this level was made more just to piss everyone off. Fuck it. Let's continue. I did say I was surprised at the previous zone's easy level, but this is ridiculous. Thankfully, the boss level isn't too hard. In fact, the reality really is, this next boss, you only need to hit just one time. What happens is, Robotnik rises up in this big shuttle, breaking through some floors, which you have to dodge the rocks and spikes that will fall. Of course, the electric bounce floors are still in effect. For when they charge up, they will bring you to the next level. Now to do that, you have to get on the rocks in order to get up, but you have to jump to another rock in midair. Do that until you're at the top, then hit Robotnik once to beat the wacky workbench and get the fuck out of there.
However, this game makes up for the atrocity that was the wacky workbench in the form of this puzzling but fun level that is the Stardust Speedway. Not much really to it other than some cool tunes and a brilliant level design. It's my personal favorite level, even if there are a couple of hard to determine paths to find that each lead to the end of each act.
Now before I continue, there is another reason as to why this level is considered legendary for this game. The boss fight. Because we're not exactly fighting Robotnik this time, but rather what is said to be his most dangerous and evil of all creations. We saw it earlier, the one robot that was successfully designed to be superior Sonic, but unfortunately for Dr. Robotnik, was still beatable. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Metal Sonic!
This boss, however, is also the bane of a lot of players' existence, so for those who are playing for the first time, make sure you have plenty of lives to spare. Now to me, the overall level of the workbench was harder, and to be honest, I do actually have fun racing against Metal Sonic. Just don't stay behind long because Robotnik will one-hit KO you with his laser. Now you gotta reach the end before Metal Sonic, and he's toast. Now get Amy and move the fuck on. Well, it's obvious that with the Sonic games, they did more or less keep a lot of the level themes for different games, and it's mostly because they work. And for Robotnik's lair, an industrial city suits Sim perfectly. This, of course, is Metallic Madness, and of all the stages, it really is the grungiest and most depressing level of the game. And as it should be, considering that it is the final zone. And there are a lot more traps to overcome. Traps such as buzzsaws, blade rods, crushers, and rotating platforms. It makes perfect sense considering that they want to give you a good challenge, unlike the fucking workbench, because you made this bar. Also, you get shrunk in the second act for a little bit. And while Metallic Madness can be difficult due to the traps and unique badness, it's pretty straightforward, so nothing too major to deal with. You know, I found that in the final act, it was actually harder to get to the boss than anything, because again, there are various traps. In particular, a giant pit of doom, where the only way to cross is by carefully getting there, and carefully timing your jumps. Then we face a 3-hit sub-boss, which is basically a laser spewing firefly. Well, 3 of them really. 1 and then 2 come out. Once they're done, we then go on to face the final boss. The final boss itself, though, I've always found it to be a bit of a letdown. But not all final bosses have to be batshit fucking crazy. Don't get me wrong, it does have a good challenge factor. You just have to be careful of those rudders that circle Robotnik. Essentially, though, you're likely going to get hit at least one time trying to get the first rudder off. After that, it's not so big of a deal. It's a matter of timing your hits, really. And there we go. He's done. Finished. As Robotnik's base blows up, Amy comes with us.
I really don't know if this is considered to be the bad ending, considering what we get to do to Dr. Robotnik in the end. Still, I guess this just goes to show that our hard work could have been better. Either way, let's enjoy the rest of this clip.
Run, fat boy, run! Owned!
This, ladies and gentlemen, is a game that is proof that when companies want to make sure that their mascot / star get the best of success, they go above and beyond. And this, my friends, is a damn good game. Now, to be fair, it could have used some improvements, but it certainly has left a good impression of a game. It's just too damn bad that the Sega CD was fucking doomed. However, that matters little. Would I recommend this game to play to anyone? Fuck yeah, I would! Anyways, this has been another episode of Shadow the Otherworld Gamer. Tune in next time. Who knows what kind of adventure we'll go on. Peace!
Side of the rainbow. It's alright, take the chance.